Okay, there we go. It's 7:30. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm excited to play for you tonight. I wanted to start with the Telemann second fantasy. In my last lockdown concert, I played the first fantasy. I'm hoping to get through some of them, maybe all of them, depending how long this drags out. Unfortunately, I'm still using the computer, the laptop microphone. So that's a little it's definitely not ideal for the oboe. I have a microphone coming, but everything's kind of slow right now. So I'm gonna stand back there, and hopefully it sounds okay. If it's really overloaded, I'm sorry. Let me know. Maybe I can change the settings here. I'm kind of limited with how I can change the settings, unfortunately, with this browser. Um, anyway, this is the first time I've played in quote public this second Telemann Fantasy since I was 18. I played it once when I was 18, but I've always liked it. And it was written nearly 300 years ago, which is kind of crazy, but we're kind of doing a lot of things old school right now. I'm making a sourdough starter because, we don't have yeast and bread and that kind of stuff. So, we're doing all kinds of activities now that we don't normally do. So I hope you enjoy the first fantasy by Telemann. I'm sorry, not the first, the second. Oh my gosh, I see somebody's angry up there. Wow. Awesome. um, anyway, thank you all for coming, except for the angry one. Sorry to make you angry, but hopefully you've left. That was the first fantasy by, it's not the first, why do I keep saying that? Second fantasy by Georg Philipp Telemann. Those are probably written for the flute, but in that time you could do whatever. You were flexible, you went with what you had, which is what I tell my kids about dinner now. You get what you get. And so you get the oboe tonight. And it's the same thing for the next piece from a very different time by Claude Debussy. This is Syrinx. And it's a flute piece also. I started practicing this a long time ago, and a bunch of my friends told me that was crazy. I actually think it's really a very lovely piece on the oboe. It's a very lovely piece on anything. You know, it's probably ultimately done on the flute, but this was written in 1913. It's known as the piece sort of most iconic of you know, French Impressionism, and probably of the flute repertoire, actually. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this one as much as I do. Okay, the next piece is by the American composer Vivian Fine. I've played a lot of her music recently. Let me grab music. She wrote a fantastic piece for oboe and piano called Sonatina, and this is a solo oboe piece that she wrote when she was just 16 years old in 1929. She wrote it, she signed it October 15th, 1929. I actually have it in her hand here. I got it from her daughter. Oh, you can't even see it. Well, sorry. Technology. But I actually got this, her daughter very graciously gave it to me. I think it's published now at Sharpco Music. Anyway, she wrote this when she was 16 years old. This put her on the map as a composer. She was a child prodigy on piano, and she won a bunch of competitions with this piece, and she wrote it for oboe because she liked the oboe. She didn't have anyone to play it, but someone took notice of it, and she had it premiered in Carnegie Hall the next year. So 1929, October 1929, that was the big, great stock market crash. So you have to think of what was a 16-year-old thinking then. It's kind of heavy stuff. I hope it doesn't turn you off. It's quite dissonant, even by today's standards, even almost 100 years later, it's quite dissonant. So what I do want to point out to you is the first Telemann piece that I played for you. Between the third and fourth note, we have one of the most dissonant intervals of all time in music. Here you go. Like, so I had, but here, that's the major seventh. That's very hard for us to understand. It's very hard for us to sing. There's an, it was kind of thought of as sacrilegious, especially an interval called the tritone, which goes like this. Try to sing it, it's very hard. And no one can hear you, so it's good. Anyway, so this piece, you hear a lot of that, and to me, I think it's kind of 16-year-old rage, 16-year-old angst. I don't know what she was thinking. But it's pretty dissonant, and if you don't like it, I'm going to play Telamon right after. But I think it's really important to play the music of dead women composers, because they've existed, and there's lots of music by dead women composers that we never hear. I had never heard this piece. I bet you probably haven't heard this piece unless you've heard me play it. I played it just a few times. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this. This is, I think it's called Sonata. Yeah, no, Solo. Solo for oboe from 1929. She wrote a second one in 1947. And I also wanted to give a shout out to another young woman named Taylor McClellan from the University of Kentucky. I believe she may be listening tonight, and her teacher told me that, like everywhere, the school shut down, and Taylor won their concerto competition, which is a really big deal if you play the oboe. It's nearly impossible to win any concerto competition. With our repertoire, you can't take an oboe concerto up against the Brahms violin concerto or something like that. But Taylor did it. She won with the Francais Flower Clock, and it was supposed to be tonight, and instead she's watching me online because her concert got canceled. And I know that's a really big deal when you're a kid to win a concerto competition. I won one once, and I got to play the Mozart concerto on my 19th birthday, and it was like the highlight of my first 19 years. So Taylor, I hope you make the best of the situation, and thanks to your teacher for trying to boost your spirits and keep everything going for you. Hope you enjoy this Vivian Fine solo for oboe. Okay, so that was the Vivian Fine solo for oboe from 1929. It's retroactively called the first solo because there's a second solo, which I will play someday, but have not yet, from 1947. Next up, we're going to backtrack about 200 years again, and I'm going to play for you the third Telemann Fantasy. I'm trying to think about what I'm going to play on future concerts, because I'm really excited about having a decent microphone. I just unplugged my computer because I think that makes it sound better. I should have done that a long time ago. So this third fantasy, again, is, on the lines of the first and second one. This one is in B minor. All of the fantasies, like the Bach well-tempered clavier, progress in the keys that were sort of available for the flute at the time. The one I played at the last concert was A major. The one I played at the beginning of this concert was A minor. Now we're up to B minor, and the way that people counted back then was A minor, B minor, and then B flat major. So number 4 is B flat, then we go to C, D major, D minor, not sure what order, E major, E minor, I think in backwards order, and F sharp minor, and the 2 Gs, major and minor. So this is number 3 in B minor. Okay, thank you. That was the third Telemann Fantasy in B minor. And for the very end of the show, I wanted to play a new piece that I started practicing very, very recently. I've actually been kind of sick, and so I didn't practice earlier in the week. And so I just got this one together, and I should have practiced it more, but I really like it, and I'm really excited about it. It's by Alyssa Morris, who wrote another oboe piece I play and love. She's an American composer, born in 1984, and she wrote a piece called Six Collision Etudes. I'm going to play the fifth one, Autumn Leaves, and I just wanted to give a little bit of frame of reference where she got this idea. A piece I mentioned in the last performance that's sort of the seminal work for oboe solo is by Benjamin Britten, his Six Metamorphoses after Ovid. And then in 1999, a French composer, Gilles Silvestrini, wrote six etudes, sort of based very, very loosely on those after six paintings. But obviously the number six, he was going there, and they sort of harken back to the Britten movements. And so Alyssa did the same thing. So this Silvestrini piece for me is, it takes the oboe really to the next level. I think it's a really remarkable piece. And, you know, Alyssa is, has both of those pieces in mind. So she wrote these six movements after, also after etudes. Not etudes, I'm sorry. After, these etudes are after paintings. And this one is by Georgia O'Keeffe, Autumn Leaves. If you look at it, it's sort of very over-realistic, very sort of primary colors. Alyssa also uses a lot of sort of jazz language in her music. And I don't know if there's anything else to say about that one. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I thought it would be a nice sort of relaxing end to this one. So that's it. Thank you all so much for coming. Oh good, it was just about half an hour. I hope to do this again. I'm kind of just pulling repertoire out of wherever. But I was hoping to learn some more of the Alyssa Morris movements and combine them with the Britten and the Silvestrini that I mentioned. So, and keep going with the Telamon. I'd love to get through the Telamon, depending how long we have in this crazy lockdown. But anyway, I want to wish everyone a good night and health and safety, and take care. Thanks so much for coming.